All right, we're going to be discussing the mechanics from a front view, and we're just going to concern ourselves with our path or the flow down the mound. So we already got these videos to the top of these guys' leg lifts. Obviously, every pitcher comes down the mound at different rates, different speeds. However, to make these guys flow together, I have changed up their speeds to fit. So what we're going to see is that we got Jerry Jones over here getting that front leg fully extended and really sitting into his delivery. We got Greinke, who's got his knee, which is going to be further back towards second base than his foot is. He's really taking this front knee and kind of curling it back so that his front hip stays closed. And Kirby is going like Jones here with his front leg, but he's keeping it in a more bent position rather than kicking it straight out like Jones. But what we do notice is no matter how these guys load into their back hips, getting down into their legs, engaging their lower halves, what do we notice? We notice where the glove is going. And that's to help them be able to see over their front shoulder. They want to be looking down the barrel of their shoulder, because the longer we can be looking here over this shoulder as we proceed down the mound. Obviously, we've gotten back to center, but look, we're still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that front shoulder. The longer we can do that into our moment of foot strike, bam, bam, we can see front shoulder, and our head is still trying to fight to keep that front, or rather our front shoulder is still fighting to stay above our chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. And when we do that, we can see that the back hip now has been able to come through, exposing the belt buckle to the batter, to our catcher, but preventing, because that front shoulder's fought to stay in so that we continue to look over it. Look what that's done with our chest. It's kept it squared up, squared up, squared up, as that lower half has been able to fire, and there lies our upper lower half separation that we're trying to achieve. And now here comes the most important part. Getting into this position is key for both our power production, our ability to throw the baseball with our body, thus reducing the amount of stress that's going on through our arm during that delivery, and helping ensure, this wasn't the straightest line here, helping ensure our energy continues to flow to the catcher. All right, we can see that head staying there, that head staying there. Kirby's fighting to keep it in there. And you can see he's fighting to keep it in there because it did not go more out there. So we're rotating that back shoulder. We're rotating that back shoulder forward. forward, forward, forward. So that way all of our power can be flung through those fingers, out through that ball, forward. If we watch that again without any interruption, into foot strike, out of foot strike. Everything staying in line with our target. And then noticing as they're getting into release, where are those chin and chests going? To the target. To the target. The angle of our trunk, this mass from our shoulders through our waist, our trunk right now is upright. It's above our hips. In relation to the ground, it's in a 90-degree angle. As we get into release, those trunks in relation to the ground are no longer up here trying to throw the baseball. Instead, in relation to the ground, these trunks of these elite throwers of the baseball, both in terms of command, the best to ever do it, in terms of longevity and success, one of the best to do it, and an upcomer with elite velocity and potential to be an all-star. Every one of their trunks at release went from being up here at foot strike to out here at release, bringing that energy down the mound, but most importantly, towards our target. And that's something that we're able to see even easier and more clearly in the side view videos. All right, so if we kind of take this back once more and we see these arm slots, we'd say, boom. Oops, let me draw a better line than that. Right, we're at a high three-quarter, three-quarter. We are in a same thing, three-quarter, high three-quarter. Same thing here, right? So these are some of your most common arm slots are the three-quarter to high three-quarter arm slot. And then what we'll look at next here are some guys that are in that lower three-quarter tier. So we'll let, we got Luis Hill, Kyle Harrison, and Carl Crawford. All right, so the same thing, moment of that foot strike, we can see that they're still fighting to keep that front shoulder in, keep that front shoulder in, fighting to keep that front shoulder in, and then coming to release and through, we can see how those heads are fighting to stay in. Luis Hill a little bit outside, but we can see through release, bam, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. Now it's out, which is no big deal. It's already stable for long enough post-release, bam, that he could do a cartwheel over here if he wanted to after. So fighting to keep that front shoulder in, And by doing that, the shoulders have stayed squared up, and with a good lower half timing and pattern sequencing, we got the back hip to have come forward, exposing that belt buckle to the batter, creating that upper and lower half separation that we're trying to seek in order to achieve higher velocities and minimize the stress that's put on our arm during these high intense and continuous throws. If we then take these guys into their moment of release, we got that same concept that we did earlier, and we can see here's our low 3/4, even getting closer, some would say, to even true sidearm. We have that low 3/4, and we got that 3/4 to low 3/4. But what we can notice is all the same with those different arm slots, but the most common arm slots in our game, all these guys are fitting the same bill in their own unique ways, but these important key points are all very much getting checked off by each, no matter what. All right, so we got the two of you guys here. We're going to be able to get more in depth with our front view breakdown here after getting to watch those big leaguers. And we're going to pause it at this moment of foot strike. And again, that's just when that front foot not just touches the ground, but we get that weight kind of going into it, which is going to show like that full foot in the ground. And what we learned with those big league examples is that we're trying to have that chin be over our shoulder with that glove finishing up into our body. And what we can see for you two guys is that we're doing a good job finishing the glove, but we can see to different degrees, but both the same, of these shoulders coming through and beginning their rotation towards the target before that front foot gets into the ground. When these shoulders start to come through early, we lose velocity, and we're going to just add a little bit of extra stress onto our throws because we're not throwing with an efficient body that's using the lower half to help power the upper half as well as it could. So that means the arm then has to kind of make up for that lack of power that the lower half could give it. And that means it's working harder more frequently. If we go back in time and we watch both of you guys have different leg lifts, you guys have both different hand separation paths, both have somewhat different approaches when it comes to this front legs approach to going down the mound. We have more of a keep the knee back, lead with the heel, so that way we're staying closed. Where Mr. Cox over here is going to more the let the leg go straight and try to ride it out for as long as he can before it starts to rotate. What we're going to notice, though, is that that rotation is occurring early. And what we know about your rotation is that it's too much. So is it too much because it starts too early? Could very easily be. But what we'll notice is the difference in the front hip, front knee, front foot alignment versus this ziggy-zaggy alignment that you have in your front leg, like we talked about. So now it's tough to expect you to be able to rotate these shoulders, even though they have already pretty much all the way rotated. But it's tough for you to expect these to be able to rotate aggressively and release something this way if this leg and this foot is opening up the opportunity for all of your energy to leak and fall that way. So the biggest thing for the two of you guys from our front view breakdown here is trying to find the rhythm, the timing, the feeling of having this lower body rotate, bam, foot in the ground, all while this upper body is still back, has not begun to rotate yet. If we could have this upper body with this foot in the ground fully, we would be in a very good position. So how can we get this front foot into the ground quicker, sooner, so that way it is in the ground at this point in time in your entire delivery? Well, like we talked about with you, was the get it up, get it going. This particular pitch here, we can see how much further along in your leg lift you are before we get going over here, but yet both of you guys get that front foot into the ground at the same time. Or at least when all of the weight gets into that front foot. So if we had a more aggressive, developing lower half in the beginning of our delivery, that lower half would complete its delivery sooner, quicker, getting it in sync and on time with the upper half and getting you into a position where that front foot is in the ground and we still have that chin, shoulder, and glove finishing up into it. Instead, by the time that front foot does get all the way into the ground, we've sacrificed a little bit of that shoulder rotation. So both of you guys need to work on keeping that front shoulder closed, keeping that back shoulder back. We're probably going to be able to achieve that by having a more aggressive lower body. And we're definitely going to be able to achieve that by not having this overly rotate and taking a long time before this front foot can stabilize all this energy that's trying to go this way, trying to rotate this way, but we got a leg that's in all different directions. Versus a throw that's trying to go this way, a rotation that's going this way around a front leg that's this way. So two different solutions to a similar mechanical flaw that is minimizing our ability to create power while reducing stress on the arm. All right, so we got you two guys up here next to each other, synced up to when your front foot gets into the ground, that moment of foot strike. So that way we can compare and contrast your guys' body's positioning to the big leaguers that we just got done learning from. So both of you guys are doing a good job fighting to keep your chin over your shoulder with that glove finishing up into your body. Boom, boom, boom. So that way that throwing arm is wanting to stay back, helping us have that lower body going towards the target while the upper body does not, creating that good upper lower half separation, which helps maximize our velocity while reducing stress on the arm because we're using the flow of our body's energy from the ground up to power the throw instead of just the arm trying to do it itself. One thing to note is I put you two guys up, obviously because you guys are in the same group, but I chose you two guys because both of you guys had a good chin, shoulder, glove positioning at this moment of foot strike. But more importantly, the vast difference between how we got one front leg that gets fully rotated from the same position that you are at and he is at to getting that kneecap rotated, that foot rotated, so that now they are going much more towards home plate at that moment of boom, foot getting down, which helps allow this backside hip to come through, exposing the belt buckle, right? Your backside is still coming through. Your backside is doing everything we want it to do. It's trying to come through, but what we can notice is a very extreme closed off front foot, with which there's nothing wrong with it, but we notice how that closed off front foot is landing. It's very much landing on the inside part of your foot first, and then it rolls to that outside part of your foot, and that then finally allows full connection to the ground in your foot. Right? But if our foot is rolling this way, we're probably going to see some of that roll also occur in this area, which is probably going to have some of that occur in this area, which will be in this area, which will eventually work its way up to here. And what we're going to notice is as that occurs, we kind of see that tilting of the shoulders, the tilting of the head, because in my opinion, from this video here, it's this upper body knows that this lower body is so closed off that it's going to have to peel this way in order to get the arms, in order to get your back arm, your throwing arm, out in front to release. And that's why I think it looks like your arm is almost like catapulting up over top of yourself because of this fact, right? We allow it to come through here, and there's nothing wrong with having a high arm slot, but you're throwing this high arm slot throw with a very tilted body, right? So if we went from like your belly button to your chin, I'm on a trackpad, so I can't draw the best of lines. There we go. Obviously, here's like the center of your chest going across the logo. And then we go to the arm, and I mean, we're pretty much at that complete sidearm slot. It's just happening from a tilted position. If we did something similar here, belly button through the chin, and then across the chest, right? Your arm flexion in your elbow is no different between the two here. It's just how much you've had to tilt your upper body in order to get this arm to be able to come through. And it's doing that because it's hard to see because of how dark your pants are, and the shoes also black. But if we watch this area here, as your shoulders begin to rotate through, this area is going to be going this way, the same way that that foot rolled that way. Right? So we'll see here how as we go to throw, we got that knee kind of bowing over to try to get that pitch to be released out in front of you. So something that we're going to want to work on is getting this front leg to get more rotated towards the target, and we can think about getting the kneecap towards the target more. So that way the foot wants to get to the target more. But we're also going to need to understand that right now that inside part of your foot is hitting the mound first, and we want to think about being a fighter jet landing on a aircraft carrier, just right on into it. Right on into that. Nice and flat, flush, and hard. Firm. Get it on in there. Just like we see here. And because you had to get all of this tilting and arching to go, like I said, now that throw is going to be rotating around that, and that's why this arm gets way up to here, because it has to rotate around this posture, and that's why your finish then takes you aggressively that way, is because of all that energy going that way, versus this already being there, so that way we can rotate around this, and then we can continue to rotate around this while still being here the whole time. So we're going to want to work on front leg rotation drills, and then we're also going to want to work on feeling the difference in that posture of not having to be so tilted as we're at foot strike, but that's going to be able to get cleaned up as this gets cleaned up. Mr. Darling, everything that we're seeing from this front view here, dude, is looking real good. All right, we got your guys' group up here with our front view videos all synced up to the moment that we get into foot strike, which again is that moment that front foot gets fully and firmly into the ground. So just like we did with the big league videos, from the front view, we want to be able to see that our chin and our shoulder are looking over top of one another, which we see the three of you guys are doing a good job of. And then we want to see that this glove is making its way up into our body, because once it starts to get out over here, it's now going to want to get that shoulder to start to open up. And as we can see, we have different varying degrees of how much we can see your guys' throwing arms at this point in time. And with those big league videos that we saw from the front view that we broke down earlier, there was no view of their throwing arms here. And if anything, we were seeing their throwing arms back here because their shoulders were so squared off and had not yet begun to rotate forward. Okay. The reason these shoulders are opening up early is because of this glove. The reason that it appears that your shoulders are opening up early, bud, is because as your arm is loading up, loading up, loading up, that it's just loading up in a position that is not as deep as maybe you know that it could be. If you were standing just like this and you were going to be hitting, you would probably want to load your hands back this way or this way more, right? We want to get that elbow loaded. We want to get our throwing elbow to make our shoulder blade activate and pinch when we load that arm, right? So as that arm is loading up, if we look over here, as that arm is loading up, we're going to notice how the part of the jersey over here gets all scrunched up because his shoulder blade is pinching. Because that arm is loading up back behind him versus yours loads up in front of you. Because we only see the tool of your jersey. We don't see any of that 5. Obviously, we know that it's an E there because we know it says 5, but that's where your jersey splits in half. So you're doing a good job keeping the shoulders closed. So that's not the reason that the throwing arm is coming through early. It's just coming through early because it's just not loading up as far back behind you as it potentially could. And then like we were showing over here, Mr. Gregorich, we are doing that good load, but then as that foot is about to get in the ground, we start to bring it through. We're starting to bring it through just a little early. And if we're not like this is going to hurt mechanics or your arm or anything like that, or your accuracy, but if we're looking to try to throw a little bit harder, this would be the adjustment we're looking to make. Try to keep these shoulders back longer, so that way this little bit of ha, 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 ha is occurring in that upper body after this front foot's in the ground, not getting it into the ground. Any bit of upper body rotation that we can minimize until after this front foot is only going to increase our power. One thing that all three of you guys do a very good job of, though, is as you guys rotate your shoulders to throw, we're doing a good job trying to keep that head on the target. It may help if those eyes were open to help us throw even better, even more accurately. But you guys all do a good job of really reaching out in front and doing a good job of a good, healthy finish with your arms by allowing your chest to go down with those arms, and a good job of allowing the back leg to finish, the back leg to finish, to help decelerate our throws. The one thing we're going to note on our finish over here in the middle is we had the gloves energy kind of send us this way. We're trying to rotate ourselves to throw the ball this way, which means if the shoulders were rotating this way to throw, we would expect them to go this way to finish. And if the back hip is going this way to throw, we would expect it to go this way to finish. And if we watch both our outside pitchers here, we're going to see that their back hips and back shoulders do go that way. Your upper half goes that way, but we notice your lower half kind of goes over towards third base dugout as you're trying to rotate around. Right? If anything, we would expect maybe us to be on first base side after we're done throwing because of how much we rotated through. Or if we are in this balanced position, we would expect to see some sort of here a little bit to indicate that we are going this way. So something just for you to note of you as you're trying to rotate things through, your body kind of wants to go away from that, which is going to add a little bit of extra stress in through your shoulder, in through your lats, maybe even a little bit because of the difference in the direction your body's going. So something that may be helpful for us to work on feeling that strength in this front leg would be some single leg throws. So if you can remind me next week, we will be able to do that drill with you. Like we talked about at our session, that front leg and its stability, right? So if we just look here, we kind of have this slight angle position, which is fine as long as we hold it or lock it out, right? And what we see is this right here goes from the slight bend, and then it's relatively straight, and it stays relatively straight. What we can see with you is we got this slight bend. It gets itself aggressively over. Now, whether that's because of this foot slipping out, boom, or is this over here needing to get over here the reason this slipped out? Not sure, right? But what we can see is no matter which way it is, we're going to notice that that knee kind of has that go over to here, so that way we're more in alignment. But what we're going to notice is inside of your shoe here specifically. Once we get this second hit and we're going to throw, see how it kind of goes to the outside of your foot there? I'll play it again. Boom. And then now, boom. There's that instability in that front leg I was kind of talking about. You're always just kind of fighting. Yeah, we see that happening over here, but it's only once the hips go so far around, the leg goes so far around, it can't stay there no more, right? Your instability in that front leg is occurring as we're really trying to initiate our finish here. So that's hopefully easier for you to see what I was talking about and why we were doing the drills that we were doing. at that first session. Everything that we're seeing over here, outside of that arm loading up, not as deep as it potentially could, everything else is looking very good from our front view. Oh yeah, let's also work on trying to keep those eyes open too. All right, so we got you guys' front view video here from your group. It's synced up to the moment that our front foot is going to get firmly into the ground. Again, that positions our foot strike. So we got it paused here at that point in time so we can kind of discuss the things that we just learned with those big league examples. The first being we want to see that our chin is looking over our shoulder with that glove finishing up into our body. And we see the two of you guys doing that very, very well. And then over here, we got that front shoulder opening up early. The glove's still finishing well, but because that front shoulder opened up, we can see the center of your chest. There's that logo. We can't see what logo we got over here. Obviously, the glove is blocking it, but if the glove wasn't blocking it, all we would see would be the tool. We wouldn't be able to see the 5 because that's on his back half of his jersey. So we want to think, why is it that your shoulders are rotating early? Well, as your arm is loading itself up, your arm is loading up, just like Constantineau's arm is loading up, up, up. Your shoulders are rotating as you're doing that. Whereas our two guys over here, as their arms are loading up, 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 they're able to keep their body, with their upper half at least, sideways. If we look at our two guys' front legs over here, we're going to notice that they are doing a very good job of getting them rotated to the target as that front leg or as the front feet get into the ground. And what we're going to notice with your front knee is that it kind of gets left behind. And as you go to throw now, that front knee, boom, is going to come over more into an alignment that we have over here already. So we're going to need to learn how to rotate this front knee and this front foot more towards the target, getting that kneecap in line with the target instead of going into the first base on deck circle. So we kind of have opposite things here. We need to learn how to get the lower half to rotate earlier, and we got to learn how to get the upper half to rotate later. So we're going to have a bunch of different non-throwing drills for you to be able to start working on both of those aspects, the upper and the lower half. My two guys here, as we've discussed so far, we're in a very good spot to be ready to throw this ball aggressively. If we're looking to throw with more power, we're going to want to look to load this arm up more. And when I say loaded up more, I could refer to it as back more. Like we saw in the big league examples, we were either not seeing their throwing arm at all like we do here because it's straight back towards second base, or we were seeing it back here because it was so loaded back that it was going to have more time to rotate forward instead of just this amount of time to rotate forward. Or from this amount of time to rotate forward versus this amount of time to rotate forward. So just some extra power potential for you two guys, since everything else from this front view looks as good and as clean as it does. Now, the one thing we will note, it's not as easy to see it here, and you may say, hey, why in the world was I doing the drills I was doing when I look like I do here? From the side view, we're going to see that you're very upright at release, and then through release, you do a good job getting down. We just got to find a way to be able to have that body going down, as we kind of see over here, as we're throwing, and then allowing it to come through just like you do. And then, like I was saying in our session, everything that I was seeing at real time in your deliveries is looking good, man. Now it's just, let's take it to the next level with the mental side, and then we'll start working on throwing nasty breaking stuff.